A single dad's daughter was born deaf. 7 years of silence. 31 doctors. 31 failures. Every specialist said the same thing. There's nothing we can do. He stopped believing. Then came one night, one blind date, one woman who saw something no one else had. Something dark, lodged deep in his daughter's ear. Missed for 7 years. What she pulled out should have been found long ago. What happened next brought a restaurant full of strangers to complete silence. This is the story of the night a father gave up on miracles, and a stranger proved him wrong. Before I take you into this story, I want to know, where are you listening from tonight? Drop your city, your country, wherever you are. Stories like this don't find us by accident. Now, let me show you how it all began. 5 years ago, Nolan Avery believed in everything. He believed in love, in medicine, in the idea that if you worked hard enough and prayed hard enough, life would meet you halfway. Then his wife bled out on a delivery table, and belief became a luxury he couldn't afford. Paige was 29, healthy, radiant, the kind of woman who made rooms brighter just by walking into them. Their pregnancy had been perfect. Every scan clean, every checkup routine. They'd argued over nursery colors, debated baby names until midnight, fallen asleep with his hand on her belly, feeling their daughter kick against his palm. The delivery was supposed to be simple. It wasn't. Something ruptured inside her, something the monitors didn't catch until blood was pooling on the floor and nurses shouting codes Nolan didn't understand. He stood frozen in the doorway, watching controlled procedure collapse into desperate chaos. Paige was conscious at the end, just barely. She looked at him through the glass. Her lips moved. 3 words he would carry for the rest of his life. Take care of her. Then the machines flatlined, and his world ended. Their daughter came out screaming, then went silent. At first, Nolan didn't understand. Babies cry, that's what they do. But Mila didn't startle at loud sounds, didn't turn toward voices, didn't react when he whispered her mother's name into her tiny ear. The diagnosis came 3 months later. Profound sensorineural deafness, congenital, permanent. I'm sorry, Mr. Avery, there's nothing we can do.
Nolan heard those words so many times over the next 7 years that they became a kind of curse, a prophecy spoken by men in white coats who charged fortunes to deliver hopelessness. He heard it in Boston, in Chicago, in Los Angeles. He flew to London, Munich, Tokyo, Singapore. He refinanced his house, drained his retirement, borrowed from Derek until Derek had nothing left to lend. 31 specialists, 31 examinations, 31 versions of the same devastating verdict. Accept it. Your daughter will never hear. But how could he accept it? Every time he looked at Mila, he saw Paige's eyes staring back at him. The same deep brown, the same quiet intensity. His wife had trusted him with one final request, and he was failing, day after day, year after year, doctor after doctor. So he did the only thing he could. He stopped trying. Not with Mila, never with Mila. He loved that girl with every broken piece of his heart. But he stopped chasing cures, stopped believing in breakthroughs, stopped praying for miracles that never came. He pulled back from the world, stopped returning calls from friends, declined every invitation. When women showed interest, he pretended not to notice. The idea of dating, of letting someone into the wreckage of his life, felt impossible. His universe shrank to 2 things, his job and his daughter. Everything else was noise. Then Derek called. "You're dying in there, brother." Nolan held the phone against his ear, staring at the stack of bills on his kitchen counter. "I'm fine." "No, you're not. You're 34 years old and you live like a monk. When's the last time you went anywhere that wasn't work or Mila's school? I like my life." Your life is a waiting room, Nolan. You're just sitting there waiting for something that's never coming. Silence stretched between them. Nolan wanted to hang up. He didn't. Derek's voice softened. Listen, there's a woman at my office, Kira. She's good people, smart, kind, real, not the fake kind of real, actually real. I think you'd like her. Derek, one dinner. That's all I'm asking. Just try. I have Mila. Bring her. What? Bring Mila. If Kira can't handle your daughter being there, she's not worth your time anyway. But I have a feeling she can. Nolan closed his eyes. Exhaustion pressed down on him, the bone-deep kind that never really lifted anymore. Why do you care so much? Because Paige would kill me if she saw you like this, and because I'm your best friend and I'm tired of watching you disappear. The name hit like a punch. Paige. What would she say if she could see him now? Would she be proud of how he raised her daughter, or would she be heartbroken at what he'd become? He already knew the answer. Fine, he said quietly. One dinner. Yeah? One. That's it. And Mila comes. Derek exhaled. That's all I'm asking, brother. That's all I'm asking. Nolan hung up and stared at the phone in his hand. One dinner, one stranger, one night pretending to be someone who still believed in things like connection and hope and second chances. He could survive that. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that this dinner would change everything. That the woman waiting for him at table 9 would see something in his daughter that 31 specialists had missed. That before the night was over, he would fall to his knees in a crowded restaurant and hear a sound he'd waited 7 years to hear. But that was still 3 hours away. Right now, he was just a tired single father agreeing to a blind date. Right now, he still didn't believe in miracles.
The evening arrived before Nolan was ready. He stood in front of his bathroom mirror, wrestling with a tie he hadn't touched in 3 years. The fabric kept slipping through his fingers. The knot came out crooked. He yanked it loose, exhaled hard, and started again. His reflection stared back at him, tired eyes, stubble he'd forgotten to shave, the faint gray creeping into his temples. When did he get so old? A soft shuffle at the doorway made him turn. Mila stood there, in her yellow dress with white flowers, her favorite. She'd picked it out herself an hour ago, holding it up with hopeful eyes, signing the question she couldn't speak. "Is this pretty, Daddy?" He told her she was beautiful, always beautiful. Now she patted across the tile on bare feet and tugged his sleeve. Their hands moved quickly, their private language, the signs they'd built together over 7 years. "You look nervous." Nolan forced a smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart." She tilted her head, studying him with those deep brown eyes, Paige's eyes. "Your hands are shaking." He looked down. She was right. His fingers trembled against the silk tie. Before he could respond, Mila reached up and took the fabric from him. With the focus of a surgeon, she looped it through, adjusted the knot, and tightened it against his collar. Her tongue poked out the corner of her mouth, the same thing Paige used to do when she concentrated. Nolan's chest ached. She finished and patted his chest with satisfaction. "Perfect." "Where'd you learn that?" She grinned. "YouTube." A laugh escaped him, genuine, unexpected. Mila's smile widened. She loved making him laugh. It happened so rarely now. Her hands moved again. "What's a date?" Nolan hesitated. How do you explain romance to a 7-year-old who'd never heard the words spoken? "It's when 2 people eat dinner together," he signed, "to see if they like each other." Mila's nose wrinkled. "You already like food. Why do you need someone else?" He snorted. "It's different, baby." "Do you like this woman?" "I don't know yet. I've never met her." "Then why are we going?" The question hit harder than she knew. Why was he going? What was the point?
He'd closed that door years ago, locked it, threw away the key. But Derek's voice echoed in his head. Paige would kill me if she saw you like this. Nolan knelt so he was eye level with his daughter. Her ponytail was crooked, the way it always was when she did it herself. He straightened it gently. Sometimes, he signed slowly, you have to try new things, even when they're scary. Mila considered this. Are you scared, Daddy? Terrified. Not of the date itself, but of what it meant. Opening up, letting someone in, risking the kind of hurt he wasn't sure he could survive twice. But he didn't say that. A little, he signed, but you'll be with me, so I'll be brave. Mila's whole face softened. She threw her arms around his neck and squeezed. He held her there, breathing her in. Strawberry shampoo, warmth, home. You're my best girl, he signed when she pulled back. You're my best daddy. They finished getting ready together. Shoes, jackets, keys. At the door, Nolan paused, closed his eyes, let the words rise from somewhere deep, words he hadn't spoken in years. God, I don't know what I'm doing, but please, please don't let me mess this up. Silence. It's all he ever got. Mila tugged his hand. Her eyes sparkled with excitement she didn't fully understand. They walked out into the fading light together.
Laurence made Nolan feel like a fraud. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the ceiling. Tablecloths glowed white under soft candlelight. Waiters glided past in pressed vests, carrying plates that looked like museum pieces. He tugged at his collar. The tie suddenly felt too tight. Mila gripped his hand, her eyes sweeping the room with quiet wonder. She'd never been anywhere like this. Neither had he, really. Not since Paige. The hostess smiled. Reservation? Avery, party of 3. She checked her tablet and nodded. Right this way. They wove through the dining room, past couples leaning close over flickering candles, past a silver-haired man reading the wine list like scripture, past a woman laughing with her head thrown back, free and easy. Nolan couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed like that. Table 9, corner booth. A woman already sat there, scrolling her phone. She looked up as they approached. Nolan's breath caught. She wasn't polished, wasn't intimidating, just warm. Freckles scattered across her nose, brown hair falling past her shoulders, and eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled, like she meant it, like smiling was easy. She stood and extended her hand. You must be Nolan. I'm Kira. Her handshake was firm, confident, but there was softness beneath it. Derek's told me a lot about you. All good things, I promise. He exaggerates. That's what best friends do. Then her gaze shifted, down to Mila, who was half hidden behind Nolan's leg. Something changed in Kira's face. Her expression softened into something tender, recognizing, like she was seeing an old friend instead of a stranger's child. She didn't crouch awkwardly, didn't offer a stiff wave. She knelt, lowered herself to Mila's level, and her hands began to move. Hello, beautiful. Sign language, fluid, natural, like it lived in her bones. Nolan's heart stopped. Mila's eyes went wide. She looked up at her father, stunned, then back at Kira. Her small hands moved hesitantly. You know signs? Kira's smile deepened. I learned from my brother. He was deaf too. Was? A flicker crossed Kira's face. Something sad, something complicated. Long story. Maybe I'll tell you later. Mila nodded slowly. Then, with the blunt honesty only children possess, she signed, I like your face. It's nice. Kira laughed, real and warm, filling the space between them. I like yours too. They slid into the booth. Mila positioned herself between Nolan and Kira, which surprised him. She never sat close to strangers. Never. But she leaned toward Kira like a flower leaning toward the sun. Menus arrived. Kira ordered sparkling water. Nolan ordered the same because his brain had stopped working. So, Kira said, settling back, Derek tells me you're in construction? Project management, commercial builds. That sounds impressive. It sounds more impressive than it is. Mostly I argue with subcontractors and stare at spreadsheets. She laughed again. Honest, I like that. The conversation flowed easier than Nolan expected. She asked real questions, listened to my answers, didn't flinch when he mentioned Paige. Derek told me, Kira said quietly. I'm sorry, I can't imagine. It was hard. Still is some days. That makes sense. Grief doesn't have an expiration date. No platitudes, no silver linings, just truth. Something loosened in Nolan's chest, something he'd been gripping for 5 years. He glanced at Mila. She was watching Kira with fascination, studying every gesture. Kira caught her looking and signed quickly, I like your dress. Mila beamed, radiant, incandescent. Thank you, I picked it myself. Excellent taste. And in that moment, something dangerous flickered in Nolan's chest. Hope.
Appetizers arrived. Bruschetta, warm bread, a small dish of herbed olive oil. Mila reached for the bread and winced. It was quick, a flicker across her face, there and gone. Her hand drifted to her right ear, pressed briefly, then dropped. Nolan didn't notice. He was mid-sentence, explaining how he and Derek had survived a disastrous spring break in college. But Kira noticed. Her smile stayed fixed, but her eyes sharpened, focused. Something stirred in the back of her mind, a memory she couldn't quite name. She watched Mila take a bite, chew, swallow. 5 minutes later, it happened again. The little girl's hand rose to her ear, pressed, rubbed in small circles. Her face tightened, just for a second, then smoothed back to normal. Kira's chest constricted. She thought of Theo, 9 years old, sitting at their kitchen table doing the exact same thing, that constant unconscious gesture, pressing his ear, rubbing, pressing again. Their mother had waved it off. He's always done that. The doctors had agreed. Sensory behavior, common in deaf children, nothing concerning. Nothing concerning. For 6 years, nothing concerning. Until everything changed. Kira forced herself back to the present. This wasn't Theo. This was a stranger's daughter, a child she'd known for 30 minutes. But the pattern was identical. Touch, wince, touch, wince. She tried to keep her voice light. Nolan, can I ask you something? Sure. Does Mila do that often? Touch her ear like that? He glanced at his daughter, who was now arranging breadcrumbs into a pattern on her plate. Yeah, she's done it for years. Doctors said it's nothing, probably sensory. Why? Kira hesitated. It's just, my brother used to do the same thing. Theo, the one who was deaf? Yeah. Nolan's brow furrowed. Okay, and? And what? What was she supposed to say? I have a bad feeling about your daughter's ear? She wasn't a doctor. She had no credentials, no authority, no right.
Nolan saw the shift in Kira's face. You okay? She blinked, pulled back from wherever her mind had gone. Yeah, sorry, She trailed off, staring at Mila. Just what? Kira was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Lower, heavier. Can I tell you about my brother? Nolan nodded. She took a breath. Theo was born deaf. Completely. Doctors said it was congenital, permanent. Nothing anyone could do. Like Mila? Exactly like Mila. Kira's fingers traced the rim of her water glass. My parents tried everything. Specialists, clinics, experimental treatments. Theo went through test after test, scan after scan. Every doctor said the same thing. Accept it. He'll never hear. Nolan felt the words land in his chest. He'd heard them so many times they'd become a scar. Then what happened? 6 years passed. Theo got used to the silence. We all did. Kira's jaw tightened. But he had this habit. He'd touch his ear, his right ear, and wince, just like Mila, over and over. Nolan's stomach turned. My mom asked doctors about it. They said it was nothing, sensory seeking, normal for deaf kids. Kira's voice hardened. So we ignored it. For 6 years, we ignored it. What changed? There was a woman at our church. No medical degree, no credentials, just intuition. She watched Thea one Sunday and asked my mom if she could look in his ear. Kira paused. The restaurant noise faded around them. Clinking glasses, murmured conversations, but he heard none of it. She found something. Something dark, lodged deep in his ear canal. A blockage the scans had shown, but the doctors had never addressed. Nolan's blood went cold. What do you mean they never addressed? Kira met his eyes. Her voice cracked. I mean they saw it. Some of them wrote it in their notes, but they classified it as insignificant, not worth pursuing. Thea was a long-term patient. He was profitable. Why cure him when they could keep billing for treatments that would never work? The words hung in the air like smoke. Nolan couldn't breathe. Are you saying? I'm saying that woman pulled something out of my brother's ear in our living room. 15 minutes, no anesthesia, no hospital. Kira's tears welled in her eyes. And Theo heard my mother's voice for the first time. He was 11 years old. Silence. Nolan stared at her. The restaurant continued around them, clinking glasses, murmured conversations, but he heard none of it. Mila whimpered. Both adults turned. The little girl was pressing her palm hard against her ear, her face contorted. A tear slipped down her cheek. Nolan reached for her instantly. Baby, what's wrong? But Mila wasn't looking at him. She was looking at Kira. And her small hands trembled as she signed 3 words she'd never signed before. My ear hurts. Kira's heart stopped. She looked at Nolan, at the fear breaking across his face, at the little girl clutching her head. And she knew with absolute certainty that this wasn't coincidence. This was why she was here.
The words hung in the air between them. My ear hurts. 3 signs, 7 years of silence about pain, and now this. Nolan stared at his daughter like he'd never seen her before. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. She's never said that, he breathed. Not once, not ever. Mila's face crumbled. More tears fell. Her small fingers dug into the side of her head like she was trying to claw the pain out. Kira's heart pounded against her ribs. She'd seen this before, lived this before. Theo curled on the couch, pressing his ear, crying without sound. 6 years of doctors shrugging, 6 years of nothing to worry about, until someone finally worried. Nolan, her voice came out steadier than she felt. I need to ask you something, and I need you to hear me out before you say no. He looked up. Fear carved deep lines into his face. What? I want to look in her ear. Silence. The restaurant hummed around them, silverware clinking, conversations murmuring, but their table existed in its own frozen pocket of time. You're not a doctor, said Nolan slowly. No. You have no training? No. Then why would I let you? Because I've seen this before. Kira leaned forward, her voice urgent but controlled. The touching, the wincing, the pain no one takes seriously. Theo did the exact same thing for 6 years, and every expert told us it was nothing. They were wrong. Nolan shook his head. Mila has had MRIs, CT scans, every test that exists. And did any of those doctors physically look inside her ear? Not at a screen, not at scan results, actually look? He opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. The question landed like a stone in still water. Had they? In all those appointments, all those consultations, all those specialists charging thousands per hour, had any of them simply looked? He couldn't remember. He couldn't remember a single one.
I'm not asking to hurt her, Kira said softly. I'm not asking to do anything. I'm just asking to see. Mila whimpered again. Her small body trembled. Nolan looked at his daughter, at the tears streaming down her cheeks, at the pain she'd apparently been hiding for years, pain she'd finally, for some reason, decided to reveal tonight. Why tonight? Why now? Why in front of this woman? His mind raced through every logical objection. This was insane, reckless. He didn't know Kira. He didn't know anything except that she worked with Derek and knew sign language. But something else stirred beneath the logic. Something quieter, older. That prayer he'd whispered at the door. Please don't let me mess this up. He looked at Kira, at the certainty in her eyes. Not arrogance, certainty. The kind that came from experience, from survival, from walking a road he was still lost on. If you hurt her, I won't. If something goes wrong, it won't, I promise. I just want to look. Mila tugged his sleeve. He turned. Her eyes were red, her nose was running, but her hands moved clearly. Please, Daddy, it hurts so bad. Something broke inside Nolan's chest. He nodded. Kira exhaled. Her hands trembled as she reached into her purse and pulled out a small penlight. You carry that with you? Nolan asked. Always, her voice caught. Theo taught me that. She moved around the table and knelt beside Mila's chair. The small girl looked at her with exhausted, trusting eyes. I'll be gentle, Kira signed. Tell me if you want me to stop. Mila nodded. Kira clicked on the penlight, tilted Mila's head toward the glow, and looked.
The beam of light pierced the darkness of Mila's ear canal. Kira's breath caught. There, deep inside, pressed against the eardrum like a malevolent shadow, something dark, dense, glistening wet under the light. It shouldn't be there. It shouldn't exist. But it did. Kira's hands began to shake. She'd seen this before. In Theo's ear 11 years ago, the blockage that stole 6 years of his life, the thing that every scan had captured and every doctor had ignored. It was identical. Nolan, her voice came out broken. There's something in there. He went rigid. What do you mean? Something solid, dark, lodged deep. That's not possible. His voice pitched higher. She's had scans, so many scans. They weren't looking, not for this. Kira pulled back from Mila's ear, her heart slamming against her ribs. This is what they found in Theo, exactly what they found. The scans picked it up, but the doctors dismissed it, called it insignificant, not worth pursuing. The color drained from Nolan's face. You're telling me for 7 years there's been something in my daughter's ear that's causing her pain, and no one looked. Kira's eyes glistened. They ran tests, they checked boxes, but no one actually looked at her, not the way she needed to be seen. Mila sat frozen between them. She couldn't hear the conversation, but she could feel the shift in energy, the tension crackling through the air. Her small hand found Kira's arm. What's wrong? She signed. What did you see? Kira forced herself to breathe. I saw something that shouldn't be there, she signed slowly. Something that might be why your ear hurts. Mila's eyes widened. Can you fix it? The question hit Kira like a freight train. Could she fix it? She'd watched someone else do it once, 11 years ago, an elderly woman from their church, hands steady as stone, pulling darkness from her brother's ear while her mother sobbed in the corner. 15 minutes, that's all it took. 15 minutes to undo 6 years of suffering. But that woman knew what she was doing, had done it before, had the steady hands of someone who'd spent decades helping where medicine had failed. Kira was none of those things. She was just a woman on a blind date who happened to notice what no one else had. Nolan, Kira's voice pulled her back. What do we do? She looked at him, at the desperation carved into every line of his face.
at the father who'd spent 7 years searching for an answer, only to find it in a stranger at dinner. "I could try," she whispered. "I could try to remove it, right now." His jaw dropped. "Here? In the restaurant? If we leave, if we go to a hospital, it'll take hours, more doctors, more dismissals, more people looking at screens instead of looking at her." Kira's voice cracked. "And meanwhile, she's in pain, Nolan, real pain, right now." He stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. "You're not serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." The restaurant hummed around them, oblivious diners, clinking glasses, soft piano from somewhere near the bar. And at table 9, a father faced an impossible choice.
"This is insane." Nolan pressed both palms against his eyes. His chest felt like it was caving in. "I know," Kira said quietly. "You want to perform some kind of extraction on my daughter in the middle of a restaurant?" "Yes." "With no anesthesia, no sterile environment, no medical training?" "Yes." He dropped his hands and stared at her. "Why should I trust you?" Kira didn't flinch. "You shouldn't. You have no reason to. We met an hour ago. I'm nobody to you." "Then why are you asking me to—" "Because I've been where you are." Her voice trembled but held. "I watched my brother suffer for 6 years. I watched my parents spend every dollar they had chasing a cure that doctors kept saying didn't exist. I watched Tio cry himself to sleep, pressing his ear, begging God to make the pain stop." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "And then I watched a woman with no credentials, no degree, no right to touch him. I watched her give him his hearing in 15 minutes in our living room while doctors with fancy offices were still cashing my parents' checks." Silence. Nolan's throat constricted. "What if you're wrong? What if there's nothing there? Or what if you hurt her? Or then I'll live with that for the rest of my life." Kira's voice broke completely. "But what if I'm right, Nolan? What if your daughter is sitting there right now with something in her ear that's been stealing her hearing for 7 years? What if I can fix it? What if this is why I'm here?" "What if this is why I'm here?" The words echoed in Nolan's skull. He thought about the prayer he'd whispered at his front door, the reluctant agreement to this date, the impossible coincidence of meeting a woman whose brother had the same condition, the same symptoms, the same medical negligence. Coincidence? Or something else? Mila tugged his sleeve again. He looked down. Her face was pale, tear-streaked, exhausted from pain she'd apparently hidden for years. "Daddy, I'm tired of it hurting." His heart shattered into pieces too small to count. He looked at Kira, at the tears on her face, at the steadiness beneath her fear. "If something goes wrong, I'll stop immediately. If she cries, if she pulls away, I'll stop, I swear." The restaurant continued around them. No one knew. No one could see the universe rearranging itself at table 9. Nolan closed his eyes. "God, if this is you, if this is the answer I've been begging for, please, please let this be real." He opened his eyes. "Okay," he breathed. "Do it."
Kira's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She reached into her purse again, past the pen light, past the tissues and lip balm and receipts she kept meaning to throw away. Her fingers closed around the small leather case. She pulled it out, unzipped it. Inside, a pair of sterilized medical tweezers still sealed in their sterile packaging. Nolan stared. "You carry those, too?" "Theo gave them to me, years ago, told me to always be ready." Her voice wavered. "I've never used them, never thought I would." She tore open the packaging. Her hands trembled so badly she almost dropped them. "Breathe," she told herself. "Breathe." She turned to Mila. The little girl's eyes were huge, fixed on Kira's face, searching for reassurance. "I'm going to try to help you," she sighed slowly. "It might feel strange,
but I need you to stay very still. Can you do that?" Mila looked at her father, back at Kira. She nodded. "If you want me to stop, just tap my arm, okay?" Another nod. Kira took a breath so deep it hurt. She tilted Mila's head toward the candlelight, positioned the penlight between her teeth, hands free, light steady. The dark mass glistened at the base of Mila's ear canal, dense, solid, years of buildup that had stolen a childhood. Kira's hand steadied. Something shifted inside her. The fear didn't disappear, but it moved aside, made room for something else. Purpose. She inserted the tweezers, slowly, gently, millimeter by millimeter. Mila tensed but didn't pull away. Kira felt the resistance. The mass was lodged deep, pressed against the eardrum like a cork in a bottle. She adjusted her angle, hooked the edge of the blockage, pulled. Resistance. She pulled again, gentle, persistent. And then, release. Something dark and wet slid free, landed on the white tablecloth with a sound like a whispered confession. Mila gasped. Not a silent gasp, not the muted exhalation Nolan had grown used to. A real gasp, audible, loud. Her hands flew to her ears, her whole body went rigid. Kira pulled back, heart slamming, terrified she'd done something wrong. But Mila wasn't in pain. She was listening. Her head whipped toward the piano playing softly across the room, then toward the murmur conversations around them, then toward the clink of a wine glass at the next table. Her eyes went wide, wider than Nolan had ever seen them. She turned to her father and spoke. "Daddy?" The word came out rough, unpracticed, broken in the most beautiful way. But it was real. It was sound. It was his daughter's voice. Nolan stopped breathing. The restaurant went silent. Forks froze mid-air. Conversations died mid-sentence. Every eye turned to table 9. Mila's hands trembled. She touched her throat, felt the vibration of her own voice. "Daddy," she said again, stronger now, sure. "I can hear you."
Nolan fell. Not dramatically, not heroically. His legs simply gave out beneath him. His knees hit the polished restaurant floor, and he pulled his daughter into his arms, and 7 years of silence shattered into 1,000 echoing pieces. He couldn't speak, couldn't form words. His body shook with sobs that ripped through his chest like earthquakes. Mila clung to him. Her small fingers gripped his jacket. "Daddy," she whispered again, "you're so loud." A laugh tore through his tears, broken, joyful, impossible. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry I'm loud." "No!" She pulled back and looked at him with those brown eyes, Paige's eyes, shimmering with wonder. "I like it. I want to hear everything." Around them, the restaurant erupted. Someone started clapping, then another person, then the whole room rose to its feet, applauding, crying, complete strangers witnessing a miracle they'd carry with them forever. A waiter dropped his tray and didn't bother picking it up. A woman at the next table pressed her hand over her mouth and wept openly. The elderly couple by the window held each other, tears streaming down their weathered faces. But Nolan saw none of it. All he saw was his daughter's face. All he heard was her voice. All he felt was Kira's hand on his shoulder. He looked up. She stood beside them, trembling, the dark mass still glistening on the white tablecloth behind her. "How?" his voice cracked. "How did you know?" "I didn't." Tears fell freely down her cheeks. I saw her, really saw her, and I couldn't look away." Mila reached for Kira's hand, pulled her down, and signed while speaking the words aloud for the first time. "Thank you." The sound of her own voice made her laugh, actual laughter, the giggling of a 7-year-old girl hearing herself for the first time. Kira laughed with her, Nolan laughed with her, the whole restaurant laughed with her. 3 hours later, they sat in a hospital waiting room. The tests were complete. The scans were done. The doctors had confirmed everything.
a calcified growth lodged in Mila's ear canal since infancy, visible on multiple previous scans, noted in several medical files, never addressed. The specialist who delivered the news couldn't meet Nolan's eyes. "Mr. Avery, I don't know how to explain this. It should have been caught years ago. Someone should have, but no one did, except her." He looked at Kira, sitting across the room with Mila on her lap. The little girl was wearing headphones, listening to music, her face lit up like Christmas morning. The doctor cleared his throat. "Your daughter's appearance to be fully restored. There may be some adjustment period as her brain learns to process sound, but the prognosis is excellent." Nolan nodded, walked away without another word. He crossed the waiting room and sat beside Kira. "She's listening to Taylor Swift," Kira said softly. "She told me it's the most beautiful thing she's ever heard." Nolan watched his daughter sway to music he couldn't hear. "How do I thank you?" His voice broke. "How do I possibly thank you for this?" Kira shook her head. "You don't thank me. I'm just the hands. God did the rest." "Then maybe," he reached over and took her hand, "maybe he sent you for more than one reason." She looked at him, at his tear-stained face, at the hope burning in his eyes for 7 years. She smiled. "Maybe he did."
3 months later. Same restaurant, same table, table 9. But everything else was different. Mila sat between Nolan and Kira, chattering endlessly. Her vocabulary was exploding, new words every day, sentences stringing together, questions about everything. She pointed at the piano player. "What's that song?" "I don't know, sweetheart," Nolan said. "We can ask." "I want to learn piano. Can I learn piano? Kira, do you play piano?" Kira laughed. "I can teach you a little." Mila grinned. Then her face turned serious. She looked at Kira with those deep brown eyes. "Are you going to be my new mom?" Nolan choked on his water. Kira's cheeks flushed red. Mila didn't flinch. "I heard Daddy talking to Uncle Derek. He said he loves you." She crossed her arms triumphantly. "He didn't know I was listening." Nolan buried his face in his hands. Kira reached over and gently pulled his hands away. Her eyes sparkled with tears and laughter. "Is it true?" she whispered. He looked at her, at the woman who'd walked into a restaurant 3 months ago and walked out with his heart. "Yeah," he breathed. "It's true." Mila clapped. "I knew it! I knew it!" Kira leaned forward and kissed him. Soft, tender, full of promise. When she pulled back, Mila was bouncing in her seat. "Does this mean I can be the flower girl?" They both laughed. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Nolan said. But Kira squeezed his hand under the table, and for the first time in 7 years, Nolan Avery believed in everything again.